After the first nights of the bombing, the battle shifted into something colder and more precise, a contest of adaptation. From December 18th to December 29th, 1972, the campaign known as Operation Linebacker 2 did not remain static. Early routes and timing revealed patterns, and in war, patterns become vulnerabilities. Over Hanoi, North Vietnam's air defenders were fighting with missiles and guns, but also with endurance, learning to see through heavy jamming, to choose firing windows, to move launch sites, and to keep command and control intact under relentless pressure. On the American side, every B-52 launch was its own calculation: payload, refueling, escort, electronic support, and the probability that a crew would not come home. In the opening phase, North Vietnam's air defense system faced a staggering workload. SA-2 missiles were launched into a sky thick with electronic noise and chaff. Anti-aircraft guns built overlapping zones of fire, and radar operators stared into screens that often looked like storms. Yet repetition, even partial repetition, gave defenders something to study. Crews compared notes between engagements, adjusted tracking methods, refined coordination between radar and missile batteries, and searched for brief moments when jamming weakened or geometry favored the shot. Not every missile found its target, but every engagement taught lessons, and lessons accumulated faster than the bombers could erase them. U.S. forces also learned quickly, because they had to. Losses in the early nights, especially among the B-52 force, made it clear that predictable tactics carried a price. After the strikes of December 24th, the campaign paused for a short Christmas stand-down of roughly 36 hours. It was not simply a lull. It was time to redesign the approach. When operations resumed, planners worked to reduce predictability. Bombers would approach from multiple directions and altitudes, compress their time over the target area, and vary exit routes to avoid well-understood traps. Electronic warfare, chaff corridors, and air defense suppression were integrated more tightly, not as background support, but as a central mechanism for survival in the target environment. Then came December 26th, one of the most intense nights of the entire campaign. Large waves of B-52s were pushed through the battle space within a short window, creating an extraordinary density of aircraft to track, protect, and intercept. Targets spanned key areas around Hanoi and Haiphong and included rail and industrial logistics sites tied to the war effort. For North Vietnam's defenders, it was the most dangerous kind of night, and also, in a grim way, an opportunity. When too many aircraft arrive too fast, even sophisticated systems can be strained by sheer volume. The sky ignited with missile trails, flak bursts, flares, and the pulsing glow of explosions. On the ground, destruction was severe, and civilian areas were struck as well. In Hanoi, places like Cam Tien became lasting symbols of the human consequences of concentrated bombing. When historians assess losses, they confront a familiar problem. Numbers vary by source and by method of counting. U.S. accounts acknowledge significant losses during Linebacker 2, with many records citing 15 B-52s lost in combat during the campaign, along with the loss of additional tactical aircraft and at least one rescue helicopter. North Vietnamese claims of aircraft shot down were higher. Whatever the totals, both sides absorbed real losses, and those losses influenced tactics, tempo, and risk tolerance as the campaign continued. Civilian casualties are also reported differently in Vietnamese sources, with official figures and other published totals not always matching. But the meaning behind every statistic is consistent. Families shattered, streets erased, and a city forced to carry grief into the next siren. By the final phase, the campaign's purpose was measured less by what was hit and more by what it compelled politically. American summaries later emphasized that the night B-52 sorties, alongside hundreds of daytime fighter and attack strikes, were intended to damage North Vietnam's logistics and war support capacity and to pressure Hanoi back toward a settlement. North Vietnam's narrative emphasized something else, that even the heaviest strategic bombing could not break the capital's will, and that survival itself proved the limits of coercion from the air. These interpretations collide because war always has layers: military, political, psychological, and symbolic. And each side chooses the layer that best explains its outcome. On December 29, 1972, the major strikes ended. Soon afterward, talks in Paris resumed. In January 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, setting the terms for the withdrawal of U.S. combat forces, even as fighting between Vietnamese forces continued until 1975. If Part 1 was the story of shock, the first impact of a strategic air campaign on a capital, then Part 2 is the story of change, changed tactics, changed rhythms, and changed understanding of limits. For the United States, Linebacker 2 became a lesson that strategic bombers and electronic warfare do not guarantee a political result when an opponent adapts and endures. For Vietnam, it became a lesson in the terrible price of modern war in a city, and in how a determined air defense system, imperfect and under strain, could still impose real risk on a technologically superior attacker. Yet the most enduring record of those days is not only in mission logs or after-action reports. It lives in memory, in the routine of blackout streets, in the descent into shelters, in lantern light and dust-filled mornings,
Mr. President,
in the silence that followed an all-clear. Hanoi, 12 days and nights, is a name for a period of time, but it is also a name for an experience, when the sky became contested space and the ground became a test of survival. Part 2 ends here, where the bombing stops but the echoes remain, and history turns the page into a chapter where peace is signed on paper, and the imprint of those nights stays written into everyday life.